This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter, and this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find more of our work at ObsessiveViewer.com and more podcasts presented by Obsessive Viewer at ObsessiveViewer.com/podcasts. And if you like what you hear and would like to support what we do here, you can become a patron at Patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer. And I'll just quickly run through this. At the $1 a month per level, you'll have access to over 150 at this point, probably, exclusive B-roll episodes of us just kind of farting around and talking, and sometimes with a topic. But yeah, it's fun stuff. But at the $2 a month level, you get that plus TV and book review and reaction episodes. I'm currently doing episode reviews of Chapelwaite on Epics, starring Adrian Brody, and based on the Stephen King short story Jerusalem's Lot. On that tier, and beginning this Friday, I'll be doing episode reviews of Apple TV's adaptation of the iconic Isaac Asimov sci-fi series Foundation. And at $5 a month, you get all of that, plus movie commentary tracks, including Ex Machina, It Chapter 2, Throne of Blood, The Shining, Dr. Sleep, and a bunch more. And finally, at the $10 a month level, you get all of that, plus early access to podcast episodes and previously unreleased content with, and those early access stuff have like little deleted scenes in them that it's kind of fun to do. Again, that's at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Oh my god, my voice just cracked so hard. I'm your host, the aforementioned Matt Hurt, and with me today, making his first appearance on the show, my guest for this episode is my friend and colleague from the Indiana Film Journalists Association, whose work can be found at Midwest Film Journal. It's Sam Watermeier. Hi, Sam. Welcome to the show.
Hey Matt, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I am excited to have you on. It's been kind of a long time coming. I haven't really put the feeler out. I just kind of like thought like, oh, it'll be good to have Sam on, and then I reached out to you and you accepted, and I'm sure that here in
finally,
right, well, I'm sure that you will be
ruining
the day you decided to come on the show. So how's it going? And also, if you wouldn't mind just kind of giving us a rundown of all of your interneting and stuff, if you don't mind, because I am not that prepared.
Sure. I'm Sam Watermeier. You asked me to introduce myself, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Sorry.
You're
okay.
Fine.
I'm Sam Watermeier. Let's see. Quick little fun fact. My mom went into labor with me in a movie theater. So nice. I was practically born to be a film critic. The movie was The Godfather Part 3.
Oh, ooh, okay.
Right during the last 20 minutes or so.
Oh,
and
dang.
my mom says that my dad asked her if they could stay because it was finally getting good.
Oh wow.
But that was my first review, so to speak.
Nice.
And now I write for Midwest Film Journal, and I'm a part of the Indiana Film Journalists Association. And yeah, I think that sums me up. Nice.
Yeah. The Godfather 3. I have not watched that in many years. But yeah, that's an interesting origin story for you. Your entrance into this world. That's
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's quite a statement. Yeah. On Midwest Film Journal, you wrote reviews of the Fear Street trilogy on Netflix that I really enjoyed your work on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so definitely check that out, guys. Check out his reviews on that. And yeah, so... and where can we find you online in terms of social media, if you have any social media presence?
Let's see. I'm not on Twitter anymore, because it's too depressing.
Right.
But you can find me on MidwestFilmJournal.com, and I'm on Facebook, and
Letterboxd.
Oh, yes, Letterboxd. You can find me at Sam Movie Man on Letterboxd.
Nice.
I try to keep up with that and stay consistent with reviews and ratings. So, yeah, that's where I am online.
Nice. Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you on. And today on the podcast, we are going to be discussing James Wan's latest film, Malignant, which is currently playing in theaters and is currently available on HBO Max until October 10th. And I didn't notice this before I was making my notes and everything, but I didn't realize that Cry Macho is also on HBO Max. And I was like, that would have been an interesting... Maybe not an interesting double feature, but just because they're both on HBO Max to do that, but that's fine. Do you have any interest in watching Cry Macho? Have you seen it yet?
Haven't seen it yet. I am a bit of a Clint Eastwood apologist.
Nice.
I know he's a crusty old conservative, but he still makes, you have to admire the fact that he's 91 and he's still making solid movies. As flawed as they are, I think, Sully and Richard Jewell are two of his, pretty decent recent efforts. I'm curious to see Cry Macho because it seems like his sort of swan song to the Western archetype that he's so well known for. Seems to be like his last cowboy movie.
Interesting, yeah.
But then again, we've been saying that he's been doing swan songs for a while now.
Right.
He keeps getting older and keeps making movies. So, good for him.
It's pretty remarkable. Like, his politics aside and everything, like, you got to admire someone that's that committed to their craft and everything. And speaking of which, not to make this a crossover episode of any kind or anything, but I do believe that you are still in the process of reading Apt Pupil.
Yes, I'm almost done with it. I'm kind of a slow reader. I get in the habit of, putting the book down and not picking it back up for a week.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
But it's oddly, for those who don't know, Apt Pupil is about a teenager who's obsessed with the Holocaust, and he finds out that his next door neighbor is was a former Nazi,
right? And
he kind of blackmails him into telling him Holocaust stories, and things don't go very well from there, right? It's surprisingly timely amid the MAGA movement that we find ourselves in, and the kind of we're still dealing with neo-Nazis, sadly, and after the Trump administration, you can sadly understand how the Holocaust happened, how so many people were convinced to do such awful things. You look at the storming of the Capitol. So it's a very timely book. Sorry, I'm getting off into a political tangent.
No, you're fine.
I don't even remember what the initial question was.
I don't know if I had an initial question. I think I just wanted to I wanted to go ahead and get my needling of you about your progress report on Apt Pupil to fulfill my obligation to you that you asked me to keep you on it.
Yes, I asked you to. Yeah, I told you to hold me accountable for finishing it. I'm like 160 some pages in, and it's like 216 pages total. So I'm almost done.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good one. I'm very much looking forward to talking to you about it after you're done, and seeing what you think of it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But before we get into our review of Malignant, I do have some news that we'll go through a little bit. So one of the kind of one of the hats you've been wearing the past couple of years is that Heartland Film Festival here in Indianapolis starting, was that in 2019 that they started Heartland Horror, or was that last year?
It was 2019.
2019. Okay.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think it was 2020.
Yeah, I think so too, because 2019 I think was when In Fabric was screened at Heartland.
That's right. That was kind of the kickoff to Heartland Horror.
Yes. Okay. So indie shorts in July and Heartland Film Festival in October have now gone into the last couple of years horror categories and everything. And you and friend of the show and fellow IFJA member Evan are kind of the main programmers of that. Do you want to talk about how that's going and how that experience has been bringing horror to Heartland?
No, I don't.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
No, I'm kidding. Of course. Those who have been following it might have noticed that Heartland has come a long way since the days of screening Hachi, A Dog's Tale. Heartland originally started as a festival focused largely on, heartwarming films. Their slogan, well, not slogan, but their mission was to find, truly moving pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, the festival has evolved and included, multiple genres to show that, even horror can move people.
Mm-hmm.
Something I said to the artistic director, Greg Zorvig, a few years ago was, I told him a story about interviewing Heather Langenkamp from the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm.
And during the interview, she told me a story about a fan who approached her at a horror convention, and the fan was in a wheelchair due to a car accident. And she said that she watched A Nightmare on Elm Street every day in the hospital while recovering from that accident.
Oh, wow.
And that seeing, Heather's character triumph over a nightmarish situation helped her overcome her own.
Wow.
And I had never really thought about horror movies being therapeutic like that before. I interviewed Heather Langenkamp a long time ago, like back in college. And I told him that, and that kind of, we started talking about a possible horror category kind of as a bit of as a joke.
Sure.
But then he came to Evan Dossie and I in 2019 and asked us to help curate a new category, Heartland Horror. It's really exciting to be part of a new category for the festival. Like you said, in July we helped select short horror films and then feature films for the main October festival. We've gotten submissions from all over the world, which is really cool. We kicked it off in 2019 with In Fabric, which during the screening that upset a woman quite a bit. I actually think you
I was there. You
were there.
I think that might have been maybe like the first screening I went to where like other members of the IFJA were there, because I think I was pretty new to the group, because I think that year I was inducted into the IFJA like in January or February, and then like I was kind of like nervous and everything to meet people in person, but I was there, and that was a really funny experience, because she did not have any scruples about voicing her opinion about that movie.
Yeah. I don't think I was actually there when she complained, but from what I was told, after the screening, she said, something to the effect of, in my 69 years of living, that's the worst film I've ever seen. And
Yep.
I hoped one of you guys would say something like, "Oh, the menstruating mannequin didn't do it for you."
Right.
She said, and my father was a projectionist,
right?
So,
so
I'm well versed in film,
right?
Yeah. And so she was just appalled that we started this new horror category, and I thought, oh, well, that means it's a great idea then.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I'm super excited about. I mean, I know that Heartland's been doing Heartland Horror for a couple of years now. This is the second year. But I'm super excited about that because, I mean, that just shows how, like, I love Heartland. I've been to it since like 2015, I think was the first year that I went to it with like a press pass and everything, my big boy press pass, and went to all the screenings and stuff. But I love it. I love the atmosphere and they really do a great job of just curating really a good selection of movies year after year. And it's so interesting to see them be, like, Heartland as an organization be so receptive to, like, genre filmmaking, and to have, like, to kind of, because like you said, they kind of go on more toward like heartfelt kind of character pieces and dramatically heavy and weighty stuff. And yeah, horror can be that, and it's just really cool to see them opening up to an entirely kind of I would say a different, and maybe in some circles underappreciated type of storytelling on film. So it's really cool.
Yeah. And I want to also say that these are hardly we're not dealing with PG-13 horror. We're really going for the hardcore horror films. So
menstruating mannequins, yeah.
Yeah, movies with menstruating mannequins, erotic stuff. Yeah, we're really going for it, which I appreciate. I'm sure horror fans think, oh, what's Heartland Horror going to be, like Casper? But we're rest assured that we're going for the hardcore stuff.
Nice. Yep. It's really something. I'm really excited about what is coming this year to Heartland. And Heartland's, I mean, it's their 30th anniversary, so it's a big one. As is, they usually do, just, they kind of go all out. And especially with, like, now it's just, I feel like it's just still so touchy with the pandemic and everything, but I appreciate and respect that they are doing both in person and virtual, and they're going for it. I know last year they did Tibbs Drive-In, and I went to a couple of those, I think, yeah. And it's, I mean, I'm just so glad that that the festival circuit is surviving as best they can. Yeah.
And horror movies are great for drive-ins.
Oh, absolutely.
Last year we were fortunate to screen Host, the Zoom based horror movie, and that was at Tibbs, and that was cool to have that at a drive-in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so let's see. So I'm gonna play a little jingle and stuff from the opening from the kind of announcement of Heartland, their 30th anniversary. So I'm going to play that, and then we can kind of talk a little bit about Heartland a little bit more, because I kind of forgot to bring it up. I forgot to play this when I said it before. So here we go with this little clip.
Greetings from the 2021 Heartland International Film Festival Announcement Day. Congratulations to all of the incredible filmmakers who have been selected to be a part of our 30th anniversary. We hope you'll join us in person or virtually as we not only press rewind through 30 years of Heartland film, but also press play on 125 feature films included in this year's festival, with with the brand new theaters, special event screenings, and retro 90s nods around every corner, 30 never looked so good. The full film lineup, schedule, tickets, and fest passes are now available today. The 30th anniversary celebration starts at heartlandfilmfestival.org.
Okay, so I came in a little late with that, but so you went to the announcement event. How did that go? I missed it on Thursday, was it?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was at Daniel's Vineyard, and they had a great wine. There was a Heartland anniversary blend
Nice.
there, and they announced the event films, which got some audible gasps from the audience.
Nice.
Especially when the trailer for the French Dispatch popped up.
Yeah.
I think getting a Wes Anderson movie, that might be, Heartland's biggest get ever, really.
Yeah,
So,
that's huge. That's huge. And I'm really looking forward to the French Dispatch. I mean, I've heard just great things from when it was at somewhere. Venice, maybe?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm super excited for that. They're also doing a Jimmy Stewart retrospective thing with Harvey and I don't have it in front of me. Was it Vertigo? Rope. That's right. Yes. Oh man, yeah. That's really cool. I love when they do those kind of I love those kind of anniversary screenings or those retrospective screenings that they do. It's they really put together a really good thing. A really good festival. That's the word. How was the selection process, and how's Heartland Horror looking this year?
We have a submission platform where filmmakers, submit their work for consideration, and we basically just sift through it and prioritize the stuff that pops out at us. One of my favorite films this year is something Evan found. It's called The Alternate. It's about an indie filmmaker who, basically does like corporate video stuff, and he's longing to make this sci-fi epic that he's been dreaming of for years. And while he is editing one of these corporate talking head videos, he finds an image that he projects onto a larger screen, and it opens up a portal to another dimension.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he goes through it and finds an alternate version of his life in which he's this huge Spielberg kind of success.
Oh, man.
It sounds like, kind of just fun sci-fi at first, but, things go horribly wrong, and it veers into horror. And Evan found that one and pushed us to watch it, and I'm really glad he did, because I think that's one of the strongest ones. We also have a fun movie called the Alpines, which is about a group of old college friends who get together for a reunion at a cabin that one of them owns, and things go quite wrong, and
Nice.
backs are stabbed both literally and figuratively. And let's see, the main one is called What Josiah Saw. And it's kind of a gothic backwoods horror movie starring the T-1000 himself, Robert Patrick.
Oh, nice.
That's a great one.
Awesome.
Let's see, what else do we have? We have an Indian horror movie called The Puppet. That has some cool scares. Another one called Hellbender, which is a Shudder production.
Nice.
And then I feel like I'm missing one, but I think that's it.
Very nice. I was
Yeah.
trying to discreetly bring up the list, but I didn't get it up in time. But yeah. So yeah. Is Heartland screening any of the shorts from Heartland Horror from the Shorts Festival? Like, are there any screenings of those at all?
I believe so. We did that in 2020 as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not sure when those are screening exactly, but I'm
Okay.
pretty sure there's a day that some of the horror shorts will be screened.
Nice. So the Heartland Horror movies are The Puppet, The Alpines, The Alternate, What Josiah Saw, and Hellbender. Did you go through all of those?
Yep, I guess I
Yes.
got them all.
Okay,
Yep.
awesome. Yes, I was totally paying attention. But no, that's great. I'm really looking forward to checking out all of them, really. And yeah, I'm really pumped about that, especially with like I said, Heartland's kind of embracing of genre film is really intriguing to me and exciting to me.
I should correct myself a little bit. I described it as gothic backwoods horror. I think a more accurate description for what Josiah saw would be like hillbilly horror.
Okay.
That's a really good one, and that's kind of like the main one, the like event title. So
Okay, gotcha. Speaking of event titles and stuff, some of the other ones that they're having are they're also they're showing West Side Story on 35 millimeter for the 60th anniversary. That's freaking awesome.
and that's cool timing with the Spielberg remake.
Oh, definitely. And some of the other ones. Oh, I'm looking forward to some of the Indiana Spotlight ones, like Mayberry Man jumped out to me, as well as Pompano Boy. Because I really like that director, Andrew Paul Davis. He had a movie, I think it was his first movie a few years ago at Heartland. Oh man, I'm blanking on what it was called, but I remember liking it. So yeah. Any movies from Heartland that jump out to you?
I'm really excited to see a movie called Mass.
Me too.
Yeah, it's kind of a one setting dialogue driven drama about two sets of parents. The one set lost their son in a school shooting, and the other set, their son was the shooter. I think that's just a really interesting concept that's never really been explored on film before.
Oh, absolutely.
That's my big one that I'm excited for.
Mine too, and that's the directorial debut of Fran Kranz, who he was in. Oh my God, Cabin in the Woods, right? That's him, right?
I think so. I know him from a movie called The TV Set. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not, but I know that it was also in the Dark Tower movie, which. Yeah, we don't talk about that here. Yes, he is in Cabin in the Woods. Oh God, he was also in The Village.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And apparently Training Day as well. But I'm very eager for that one. That one is definitely high on my list there. Yeah. Have you heard
we should probably
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think another one of the big ones that people will be excited about is Spencer. It's about, it stars Kristen Stewart as Princess Diana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Directed by Pablo Larraín. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. I don't know Pablo Larraín's work that well, except for he directed all the episodes of this year's Lisey Story adaptation on Apple TV, and like in terms of just the visual style and the camera work and the directing of that, it looked really interesting. So I'm excited to see that, and Kristen Stewart. she's a very interesting actor. So I'm looking forward to that. Yep. I had another one in my head, but I just closed out the page. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so that's exciting. Heartland Film Festival, when does it run? It runs from, do you have that information right there?
I think it's from October 7th through the 18th, but I'm going to look it up right now.
That sounds right. Yes.
We really, yes.
Yep.
7th through the 17th.
Yep. And I could have discreetly done that without putting you on the spot there. So
it's okay.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
It'll be fun for people to hear that we really do our homework here.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, they know all too well already. But check that out, heartlandfilm.org. I don't know if it's like region locked with the virtual stuff, but I think last year it was kind of like some of them were or something, but yeah, just check it out because it's really cool.
Definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so as we said, today we're going to be talking about James Wan's latest film, Malignant. Are you ready to talk about Malignant, Sam?
Boy, am I.
Okay, awesome. So, as is customary, we're going to do a non-spoiler review and a spoiler review. And so yeah, we're going to go into our non-spoiler review. I'll play a clip from the trailer before we go into spoilers so you guys can, navigate that and be warned. But yeah, for non-spoilers, before we get into that, the plot summary courtesy of IMDb is: Madison is paralyzed by shocking visions of grisly murders, and her torment worsens when she discovers that these waking dreams are in fact terrifying realities. Malignant is directed by James Wan and written by James Wan, I think, with a story by credit with him and I believe it's his wife. I don't have her name readily available, but I'm going to vamp for just a second. Okay. So Ingrid Bisu. And, okay, no, I got that wrong. Okay, so story by credit by James Wan and Ingrid Bisu, and then story by credit and screenplay by Akilah Cooper. And this film stars Annabelle Wallis as Madison, Maddie Hassan as Sydney, George Young as Kikoa Shaw, and Michelle Brianna White as Regina. And yes, so Sam, let's talk about Malignant in all of its non-spoiler glory. How did you feel in broad terms about James Wan's latest horror film?
Well, I went into it without any knowledge of the plot, which I think is the best way to go.
Nice.
Or at least try to have as little knowledge as possible. Mm-hmm. Because the movie has quite a twist, one of the craziest ones I've seen in years. Mm-hmm. We'll get into that later. But, I think right now James Wan is known mostly for these kind of classy throwback horror movies like The Conjuring and Insidious, but this is kind of a return to his gritty roots. Mm-hmm. It's a little more reminiscent of Saw and Dead Silence, his early forays into horror. It's it's just fun trash, I would say.
Yeah.
It's it has crazy twists, kind of melodramatic, like soap opera twists. The acting is fine. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think I don't know. I'm wrestling with whether it's one of those so bad it's good movies or if it's legitimately good. It's you can't take it too seriously. I was, I wouldn't say that it. I was laughing more than I was, gripping my armrest in terror. Mm-hmm. I would recommend seeing it in a theater just to get the kind of communal reaction and experience. It's just a really fun, pulpy, trashy B movie.
It's funny. I agree with you 100%, but I was all in for it. I loved this movie. And you're absolutely right. Like it's not something to really be taken too seriously. Like, it's one of those movies that if you're not on board with the crazy shit that's happening in it, you're probably going to be in for a bad time. And what's interesting to me is that, like, it has its share of gruesome, grisly horror elements and everything. Also, weirdly, has some parkour elements in it as well. But for the most part, like, it wasn't like frightening. Like, it was very moody, very atmospheric. There's some really cool camera work. Like, there's this one section that just kind of I was just really just strapped in and just taken with it, where it's a top-down view of her running through her house. And it is so interesting the way that it's visualized and everything. But I wasn't necessarily frightened by it. And I think that that's something that I count as a plus, because, like, I don't really get that frightened by movies. I get kind of grossed out by some movies, but I don't really get, it's kind of rare for a movie to, like, affect me in a deep way. Like, I remember when I saw The Witch, when I was driving home from the theater, it was nighttime, and I was, like, passing by, like, a cemetery, and it just felt, like, eerie and unsettling, and I just felt like this is the kind of emotional reaction I like having to horror movies. And here with Malignant, it was just like, I think I was just so gobsmacked by the just craziness of it that I was just like, it's a roller coaster. It's a ride. It's a thrill ride. And as hacky as that sounds, I just realized saying that out loud, it's 100% a thrill ride. Matt Hurd, obsessive viewer.
It's a pulse pounding, high octane thriller.
Yes. God. The city is like a character in and of itself.
Makes speed look like a slow ride to grandma's house.
I love it. But it is very cool, very stylized, and it does have, like, a B movie feel. Like, that soap opera element of it also is it's so weird. To talk about it in broad terms is not to do it service, but the kind of just the weird meld of different elements, like that melodramatic thing where like a character's like reveals something about herself to another character, and then it just cuts away from that to something else entirely, and I'm just like, wait, like, is he intentionally, like, not letting that, like, revelation breathe? What point is he making here? And it kind of just seems like a little wink to the audience. Like, we know that this is crazy and absurd. We're priming you for the more crazy and absurd stuff. And I was along for the ride. I really loved it. It was really fun.
I want to kind of elaborate on the soap opera element. I think a good example of that is early on, the main character, Madison's husband, is revealed to be, very abusive.
Oh, yes.
And there's one part, he says something like, I'm tired of my children dying inside of you.
Yes.
And then he slams her head against a wall. Mm-hmm. And it bleeds throughout the movie. Mm-hmm. And, I don't want to like belittle the domestic abuse angle, but it is played up as kind of a, kind of heightened and soap opera-ish. Mm-hmm. And, the twist that her head injury eventually leads to is like something you would see maybe in some crazy season of like Days of Our Lives.
Yeah, that is true.
A very extreme Days of Our Lives, but I can see it happening.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I found the kind of domestic violence angle. It's only in really just very briefly in the opening of the movie. And it was interesting because I found myself thinking that was played pretty sincerely in contrast to the rest of the movie's more kind of crazy stuff. Just that kind of switch that gets flipped in him. Like, yeah, the whole, like, I'm tired of watching my children die inside you. Like, that is like fodder for daytime television. It's dark and it's just sudden and really cruel. But like that way that he, after he, pushes her against the wall, like slams her against the wall, like he comes back, I think, after that, and he's just like, I'm sorry and everything. And it's just like that resonated in a certain way, because it just felt like that seems authentic. Like that seems like it's pretty authentic to kind of the tumultuous relationship, toxic, violent, abusive relationship. And I was just not really prepared for that. And then it's weird because in contrast with the rest of the movie, the more silly elements are played up as silly elements. So yeah,
that's a really good point. Yeah, when he comes back and apologizes, it is really unsettling, because you can imagine that's how those relationships work.
Yeah.
Is the guy comes crawling back and says he'll get a handle on this behavior,
right?
And, that's I'm not sure people really do get a handle on that kind of behavior,
right?
If they're pushed that far in the first place, or if they're, inclined to go to that extreme.
Right.
So yeah, that was genuinely unsettling in comparison to, the rest of the movie. But, of course, horror movies are all about the sort of everyday things that actually scare us. So
yeah. Oh yeah. And when they go into those extremes, it's supposed to put you off kilter and everything. And I think that's something that James Wan does pretty well in this movie. And even the opening prologue, it's so, it's so interesting to me. Like that opening prologue, it's this very like stylistic choice of, it reminded me of like a Sam Raimi movie, and also just like the aesthetic of the hospital, because it opens on a hospital in the 90s, and just that dark, ominous kind of almost gothic, or almost gothic in nature, which is the name of my rap album. The way that it is just shown, and then we have like that prologue is just so weird and out of, I don't know. It was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a weird mix of like kind of everyday domestic stuff, and then just like batshit crazy, mental asylum, body horror. It's a weird movie.
It definitely is. And there is what really struck me, as we're in non-spoilers, is the music in it is so, it felt like so much of it was like a throwback to like 90s horror and thriller kind of stuff, very kind of, I guess, electronic, or it's I don't know, like synthesized a little bit. But then they had that that cover of Pixies, Where's My Mind? And like, I didn't know that, like, when it came in the movie, I was like, I didn't recognize it as that. And then someone on Facebook was like, oh, what did you think of that? And I'm like, oh shit, that just blew my mind a little bit.
I did notice that in the score, that it kind of like, it's sort of a riff on that song, and that did make me geek out quite a bit.
Yeah, it's really fun. But what else can we say in non-spoilers about this? There's one element that I want to kind of touch on, but I'm gonna have to dance around it a little bit. But I do want to get into non-spoilers. But any thoughts you have on kind of the the batshit stuff that before it becomes ultra batshit stuff.
Well, I think without the batshit stuff, it's pretty. It's like a lot of things you've seen before. You know, the woman Madison has these premonitions of horrible murders and you know, the body count piles up, and I think it's really not until that batshit crazy main twist that the movie really hits its stride.
Yeah, I definitely get that, and in terms of not necessarily the twist, but the it's referenced in the trailer, but the kind of the villain of the movie for you know, I'll just kind of dance around it, but the name Gabriel is attributed to the villain. And what I found really interesting is that the movie portrays him or demonstrates him as this malevolent, almost supernatural, like it's created as this kind of supernatural element. And what I found really interesting about that is that it's different from other kind of supernatural monsters and everything, in that it's like Gabriel is communicating with the people, and like there's a scene where he calls the cops, and I'm just like, what am I watching? Like, what is this? It feels like one of those movies that like my parents rented from Blockbuster in the 90s that had like some supernatural kind of thing, but it had like a chase sequence in it.
Doesn't he talk through radio waves or something like that?
Yeah. And it's funny because like that's not explained at all, and I don't need it to be explained. But it's really interesting. Yeah. How do you feel Malignant stacks up against James Wan's other work? Full disclosure, I've only seen The Conjuring, Insidious, and Saw. So I haven't seen his earlier movies, and I saw Aquaman, but that's not horror, and Furious 7. How do you feel it? Where do you feel like it is places in James Wan's horror oeuvre?
You know, I've seen people say they're disappointed with it, you know, in comparison to like The Conjuring and Insidious. And he's even said in interviews that with this, he wanted to kind of reinvent himself and shake things up a bit. I was happy to see him kind of letting loose again and doing something more in the vein of Saw or Dead Silence. I would kind of rank it among his like early pulpy efforts. I would say it's about as good as you know, Dead Silence, which is an evil puppet movie,
right?
You know, in terms of like ranking it, I don't know. This is like a 3.5 out of 5 star movie for me.
Sure.
I think the Conjuring is actually great, and I think that's, you know, really breathed new life into the haunted house genre. I would say that's a legitimately great horror movie. I would say that this is, you know, that's like A-list. I would say this is you know, a B movie.
Sure, I totally understand that, and I respect that. I think one of my hangups about The Conjuring in particular, and it's been a while since I've seen the first one, but my memory of it is that it does the thing that I'm so tired of in horror, is that it just becomes an exorcism movie. Does the first one become an exorcism movie? I think so, yeah, right?
Well, the last one, it is basically an exorcism movie.
Okay.
The Devil Made Me Do It.
Right.
Yeah, I think the series has gotten tired, but I think the first one is really great.
Yeah, the way that it incorporates that kind of haunted house element to it is intriguing and interesting and everything. But I also watched Insidious some time ago, like back when I worked nights and I was like half asleep when I watched it. So, but I will say that like coming at Malignant through someone who isn't as fresh on James Wan's horror portfolio, compared to like his more recent work with Aquaman and Furious 7 and what have you. This, just seeing the stylistic choices that he makes in this and the just kind of balls to the wall craziness that happens in the later parts of this movie, it really, really makes me want to go back and just kind of go through his catalog, finally catch Dead Silence and his other movies, and just kind of really kind of live in his horror world, because it is a unique movie for me, and with all of its faults and all of its silliness and everything, I was so taken with it. I really had fun with this. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so did I. I mean, I don't mean to, like be dismissive of it.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great time too. I wouldn't place it next to like The Conjuring or anything like that.
Sure. And I kind of feel like Saw is a little untouchable. I hold Saw to such a high esteem, the first one. And to be honest, I have not watched past Saw 3 actually, weirdly enough, but that first one is just it's so good. It's really good. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Okay, do you want to go into spoilers for Malignant?
Yes, please.
All right. Well, we are going to play a clip from the trailer, and then when we come back from the trailer, we're going to spoil Malignant. If you want to skip the spoiler section to whatever we do afterwards, I don't know what it'll be. We'll see. Go ahead and check the show notes for timestamps, but here is a clip from the trailer for Malignant.
He says his name is Gabriel. I think he's someone from my past.
Happy birthday.
Whatever happened to you before you joined our family hurt you in a way that I can't even imagine.
Stop saying that.
Maddie, who are you talking to?
Gabriel.
Is he your imaginary friend? Imaginary?
He's the devil.
All right, so spoilers on for Malignant. Sam, this movie, holy shit, man. It's so crazy. Do you want to have the honors of kind of running down what is revealed at the end of this movie? To bring us into it, or would you rather, as the host, would you rather I bring us into it? I just realized I'm putting a lot on your plate.
Yeah, ooh, that is a daunting task.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I'll give it a try.
All right, great.
You can help me out if I'm not doing well. Okay, so, wow, how to explain this? Okay, right. Madison, the main character, has these premonitions about murders that then actually happen. Mm-hmm. She seems to have some kind of like telekinetic connection to the murderer, Gabriel. It turns out that Gabriel is actually her brother. And not only that, Gabriel is her parasitic twin brother growing out of the back of her fucking head.
Yes. Just what the fuck is this movie? Oh my
he
god!
Can control her body, and she, I think it was Evan. He made this hilarious comment that was, so he controls her body, and basically she like moves backwards. Mm-hmm. And Evan said something like, "Malignant did backwards action so much better than Tenet." And I thought that was hilarious.
That's great. That is really great.
I
love it.
So it turns out that, he is controlling her. Oh, and he's unleashed because her husband slammed her head against the wall and opened up the wound that Gabriel was sort of like tucked inside of.
Right.
He was like tucked inside of her brain, and then the hit to the head unleashed him.
Kind of opened him up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, during that whole like reveal, when they showed how like the kind of flashback or video or whatever of the operation to close up the skull to keep him inside and all that, like my mouth was just on the floor. I was so like grossed out by it, but also like I just kept thinking like, what am I watching? What is this? Like, who thinks of this? It was just so unique and inventive for me, that I was willing to forgive the weirdness, the kind of weird, kind of comical, melodramatic kind of things. Like, to kind of backtrack a little bit, like there was that scene where she says like, "Oh, I'm adopted," and then it's just cut to something else, and it's like you're not living in that moment. Like this is like I still don't know if she's revealing to her sister, who looks nothing like her, that they're adopted, that she's adopted, or like that's her first knowledge of that. I don't know, but it just felt so weird that it transitioned away from that, and then you have you just have other elements like that that are just kind of like left there. Like when her sister goes to the hospital and like breaks in easily and then goes to the records room and then finds it and everything, I'm like, okay, this is asking a lot of me to forgive and everything. And then it just hits you with this parasitic twin thing in her brain that is controlling her body backwards and killing people with her body, but backwards. I'm just like, okay, I'm good. I can forgive all that other stuff. It's not a big deal. This is crazy. So how did you feel about all of that?
I mean, once that was revealed, the parasitic twin, I was laughing my ass off, and just laughing until the end of the movie. It's fucking hilarious.
It really is.
I've heard some people making complaints that this movie like exploits medical issues or something, and it's like, give me a fucking break.
Yeah.
It's a monster growing out of the back of her head. I'm pretty sure that's not a real medical issue, and if it is, holy fuck.
Right.
But you know, I think it fails a little bit when it tries to get serious. Near the end, she tries to kind of like reclaim her body, and there's this sort of female empowerment message, which is, you know, admirable, but I'm not sure it really works against the craziness. It just didn't quite land for me because it's just so laughably crazy. But to try to have this earnest, like empowerment, you know, my body, my choice sort of message. I don't know. I think it was admirable for trying to go there, but I'm not sure it really stuck the landing.
Man, I agree completely with that. That was something like when, like, I was so on board, I was so jazzed, I was so energized with all of the just crazy, like, reverse John Wick shit that was going on and all of the other, like, just craziness that's going on in it. And then when we get to the ending in the hospital room, it's like, okay, this is, you know, this is the big finish and everything, but we get this, like you said, this kind of female empowerment thing, which I agree is admirable. It's great, but I don't think it is set up properly. I don't think that is as strong a narrative through line as the movie presents it to be. And in addition to that, I also feel like the relationship between her and her sister leaves a little bit to be desired when compared to like that. I think it may be like the final line of the movie where she's like, "Oh, I love you, sister, and I love you too, and I'll always be with you," and all that, or whatever. And it's just like, it's established when she first comes into the picture, her sister early in the movie, that there's a bit of a rift, or they're not in close contact, but we don't get any other like conflict or anything throughout the movie. So I felt like that fell a little bit flat. Like, for me, and that was kind of a downer, because I think that had they seeded that better, both the female empowerment and the sister bond and everything, if they'd seeded that better and made that more of a focal of Gabriel's kind of whole thing, I think that this could have like been just an even stronger movie for me. and I say that as someone who loves the movie.
Yeah, I think with the sister thing, the movie is trying to set up this idea that Madison wants to have a blood connection,
right?
That's not, her monster head brother,
right?
And she doesn't have much of a relationship with her mother because her mother was a teenager when she gave birth and kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
So she tries to have a baby, and because of the monster head brother, she's having these. That was a horrible transition because she's having these miscarriages. That's not funny,
right?
But the monster head brother is,
yeah,
and so she's trying to form this blood connection, and in the end. She says something to her sister like, you are family, blood or not. And I think you're right that there's not enough build up to that for it to be an earned moment.
Right.
It doesn't explore the sister relationship enough for that moment to like really land.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that it's all told, it's kind of a minor blemish for me just because the majority of the rest of the movie is played so much like a B movie, and so much like consciously silly, but not really caring how silly it is. That it's played so when it's played straight at the end of the movie and in certain aspects of it, it kind of comes across as being kind of a not really a good tonal kind of connection with the rest of the movie. And I mean, like I said, I think that that's just really a minor blemish for me because I was still really, really engaged by it. And what'd you think of the gore and everything in the actual, like the action scenes and everything?
I will say that Gabriel is legitimately stomach churning. I mean, there are really good creature effects. I found him, pretty revolting. He basically looks like this sort of like murky green octopus growing out of the back of her body. And I think it's hilarious when they show footage of him doing these tests with doctors and he like uses his little tentacles to like point at things.
Yeah.
The gore, there's an amazing sequence where Gabriel like mows down a shitload of police officers.
Yes.
And it just like blood spills everywhere. Madison's husband is killed in a really graphic way, like his neck is all fucked up. That was genuinely upsetting. I mean, it's pretty gross.
Oh, absolutely. It's pretty strong, and it's weird because like I usually get kind of a little bit touchy with that kind of stuff. Like I get, okay, so perfect example. The reason why I've only seen up to Saw 3 is because the brain surgery sequence in Saw 3, I was like, nope, I'm out. I'm done. This is my last Saw movie. That, and also the twisting limbs and the compound fractures are like a big thing for me that I can't handle. But this, I think because it's so stylized in this movie, those elements, like the brain surgery element and the compound fractures that he doles out to all the police and the people in the jail cell and everything, I think because it is against that kind of silly B-movie backdrop kind of thing, and it's so stylized, I think that was a lot more palatable to me. And yeah, it was so, just so out there and weird and fun. Yeah. What did you think of the reveal of the birth mother and that whole, her crashing down into the, in the house and playing the cover of Where Is My Mind? How'd you feel about that? Cause I thought it was just beautiful.
Well, to set it up, when she crashes through the house, you discover that Gabriel / Madison, kidnaps her birth mother and then keeps her in the attic of her house,
right.
And keeps her tied up and everything. And then at one point, she hilariously falls through the attic and lands into the living room while Madison is talking with the police. Mm-hmm. And obviously, she becomes the number one suspect after that. Fun fact about the birth mother, that actress plays sort of the main wife in the show Yes Dear. I don't know if you ever watched that.
I never did. Wow.
I was oddly kind of obsessed with it in like 5th grade.
Interesting.
It's kind of a bad sitcom, but I liked it when I was a kid because I liked everything. But it was fun seeing her. I was like, oh, Yes Dear lady.
Wow.
Sorry to that actress, whatever your name is.
Right.
But I thought that was fucking hilarious. There isn't much closure with her mother either.
Yeah.
She is kind of, so basically the mother as a teenager gives her daughter away to this hospital to try to treat the fact that she has a monster growing out of her head.
Right. Like you do.
And everyone's like very matter of fact. Like no one seems that shocked by this.
Right.
Like I would be freaking the fuck out.
Right.
Like the doctors don't seem phased at all.
Yeah. And like there's that and again that kind of like low grade telepathy thing where like since they share a brain, she can see what he sees behind her and stuff, and then also the radio frequencies and everything. It's just so nonchalant, and that's why I think the prologue is so interesting as a gateway into the movie, because it ends with that weird like that weird stylistic choice of the line where she's like, it's time to cut out the cancer, and then credits. I'm just like, what is this? Like, what have I gotten myself into? And it's very unique. I've got to say. Yeah. But you're right. I don't think she has much closure at the end of the movie either.
And I hate to like complain about these things because it's not like I cared whether the movie worked as a drama or anything.
Right.
I hate to try to judge it as like an earnest drama.
Right.
But that her mother relationship felt kind of tacked on. But whatever.
Right. The movie does at least attempt to have some closure with her telling Gabriel that he's her son and she should have loved him unconditionally or something, which I can appreciate that, but also dude's a parasitic tumor growing out of his sister's brain. Like yeah. So I can appreciate that. Even if it didn't really work for me all that much. Yeah.
Oh, and I would say going back to, I said something about, how it's kind of silly to complain about the movie exploiting medical issues.
Yeah.
But I would also say that, I think anything is really fair game in horror. We do have fears of having medical issues and I think, obviously we don't worry about having monsters growing out of our heads, but
right.
The whole point of horror is to kind of hold a funhouse mirror up to normal issues. So Gabriel, this parasitic twin, he's the funhouse mirror of a more normal medical condition. So, I don't know. I don't really think the movie's like exploiting anything. And like I said, I think anything is fair game to be explored through horror.
And I agree with you. I don't see it as being anything, no pun intended, anything malignant in the in what they're going for. I don't see it as anything like negative about any kind of like actual real life illness, because like you said, I mean it's a pretty out there kind of thing. It's a heightened extreme thing, and given that Old came out this summer, and Old is a situation where M. Night Shyamalan has once again used a mental disorder or cognitive disability as a gateway for a villain character in a much more straightforward and just like a gross way. I think that in light of that, comparatively, I don't think Malignant has any issues on that front, because it is such a heightened thing and it's such an extreme version of an extreme take on something. Plus it's so crazy.
That's interesting, and I think that's a good point about Old. If I remember correctly, one of the characters, I think it's the actor Rufus Sewell, or Rufus or whatever. He has like dementia or something, or like some hint of dementia, and
he develops some kind of cognitive disorder.
Yeah, and he's basically portrayed as this like crazy killer, and I admit that, like, that is offensive. But I think the case with Malignant, I think it's a completely different thing. I mean, that's not a real medical issue as far as I know. So
right, it's funny because I did, as a slight tangent, like a week or two before I saw this movie, I just happened to see, like, there was a thread on Reddit that was like, what is on like Ask Reddit, it said like, what's a really disturbing fact that you know, or what's a really disturbing thing that not a lot of people know about, and it's just standard kind of responses. But there was one where it was like and I, like when I read this, I was like, oh, I wish I didn't know this, but apparently I don't know the actual vernacular or anything, but it's like tumors that can grow like the look of faces and teeth on them. And I read that and I was like, that's pretty trippy. That's pretty weird. And then like someone linked to like an image of one, and I'm like, oh, okay, nightmare fuel. That's horrifying. Then a couple weeks later I see Malignant, and it's like, oh, okay. So there is precedent, I guess, for this type of thing, but I don't think it's a thinking thing in the real world of like I think it's just a tumor that doesn't have like, it's not an entity or anything.
Right. I mean, like when I say it's not a real thing, I mean, obviously, that there's no such thing as like a talking tumor.
Right.
Or a tumor with a mind of its own that can control a body. Like,
right. I can call cops and call a sister.
Right. But I don't know. Maybe the it's just hidden from us.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about that though.
Right. Me neither. So something that we haven't really talked about is the detective angle. The two detectives, that seems like kind of a a pretty standard archetype for like a serial killer story. And I appreciated it. I thought it was a good addition and everything. The chase sequence that he has with Gabriel was really interesting. It felt very evocative of like Seven. So I just found that interesting. I did find it kind of weird that like he has a flirtatious thing with the CSI tech, and then he's also like kind of hitting on the sister, and it's just like, I don't know where am I supposed to point him to? Like, who am I rooting for? Why is there a love triangle here? But how did you feel about that whole subplot and the detective angle of it?
Oh, that's interesting. I actually about Seven. I hadn't actually considered that, but you're right. He runs down a fire escape and like falls off of a dumpster, and I think that's exactly what happens to Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
So yeah, nice nod there. In terms of the love triangle, I would say it's one of many things that this movie kind of randomly throws in.
Yeah.
Like there's another scene where Madison's sister is revealed to be a birthday party princess or something like that.
Yeah, what was that?
And like that was just like some random like throwaway joke.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand why that was in there.
Yeah.
It didn't really fit the tone of the movie.
It
really,
was
just like,
yeah.
like it felt like just randomly tossed in comic relief that none of us needed because the movie's already funny enough.
Right.
But in terms of the love triangle thing, yeah, that just felt like kind of like throwaway humor to me.
Yeah.
And you know, this idea that the cop and his partner even calls him out on it. This idea that the cop is like easily swayed by women or something. I don't know. That was kind of goofy to me.
I agree. And the birthday princess thing, like it alone serves as an mildly interesting like way to introduce the sister character to the detective and establish that awkward flirtation kind of thing. But I think when you consider that a big part of the backstory that the movie does with Gabriel and Madison later in the movie deals with like a video of her birthday party and stuff, that creates this weird like subtle connection there that I don't think is there or should be there. And I think that that's kind of a mistake in terms of like having like this throwaway line about a birthday princess and then having birthday play into backstory and stuff. It just, that kind of makes it a little bit confusing because I was like thinking like, is that going to be a callback to, is that going to be called back in some way? But yeah, I don't know.
That's interesting. I hadn't even made that connection between the birthday princess and the birthday party footage. So you read into it more than I did.
I'm fairly certain that I read into it a lot more than other people did too. Like, I think I might just be reading too much into it there, but
no, it's interesting. I mean,
yeah,
I hadn't considered that.
Yeah. Another thing about that, about the sister angle and everything that I feel like is a little bit of a dropped thread, maybe, I don't know, but when it's kind of, I think it may be when she's doing the kind of hypnotherapy thing, but there's like, it's not really a throwaway line, but it's called to attention that her sister was a threat to Gabriel. Like because she was about to be born, she was going to replace Gabriel as, you know, the person that had a stronger connection, had the strongest connection with her than anyone. And like, I feel like that was meant to be like the more significant setup toward the ending scene and everything with her saying like, oh, you're not blood, but you're family and everything. But I also kind of feel like that I was thinking that there was going to be like another twist where it's like, oh, Gabriel's going to go after the sister and she's going to be like in mortal danger and because he's jealous or something or wants to stay in power. I don't know. I like, my mind was going places that the movie wasn't, but I don't know. Did you pick up on any of that or am I insane?
I mean, I think that's, you know, sort of interesting that Gabriel was like jealous of her having a sister, and like maybe that's one of the reasons why he you know, came out. But I don't think that was developed enough, really. Right. I don't know, like the whole movie, everything surrounding the twist is kind of underdeveloped. Right. It's like there's this insane twist in the middle of a movie that's like sort of flat. But then again, that kind of makes the twist even funnier.
Right.
that, you know, it comes out of this sort of okay horror movie and turns it into a much more enjoyable movie. But yeah, I don't know. And the sister is portrayed as being like kind of ditzy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I would have liked to have maybe seen more footage from her childhood that showed the relationship with her sister and maybe why Gabriel might have been jealous or
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But for all of its goofiness and craziness, I still it's rare these days, and I think it's just because of residual pandemic stress and everything. Since it's still fucking ongoing, but I think that this is the first movie I've seen in a while, like the first new release movie that I've seen in a while, where I spent like the next day at work just thinking about like just the insanity of it all. Like it was in my brain, and I listened to like that song over and over again at work, and I'm just like, this is as the kids say, I was vibing pretty hard. And I like, it's just a kind of breath of fresh air for me, considering that like this year I'm so anal retentive about my movie watching and how many movies I see and putting together my top 10 list and everything. But like last year, it was just like, oh, dumpster fire of everything. And then this year, it's like an uphill climb to get back to like being anal retentive about my movie watching without worrying about the world ending and everything. And this is like the first movie where I'm like, oh, I'm going to be excited to talk about that later in the year. So yeah, so I'm very pleased with it. I'll say that.
Yeah, I had the same experience. It was fun to talk about it with friends and to kind of exchange what the fucks.
Right.
And I actually, this was part of I saw this during a weekend that was pretty movie heavy for me.
Oh, yeah.
I went to a screening, a press screening of The Eyes of Tammy Faye, and then pretty much immediately turned around at Keystone and watched The Card Counter. And then Malignant was the movie I saw the next day.
That's so awesome.
So, and oddly enough, I would say out of those three, The Card Counter and Malignant were the ones that had the strongest impact on me.
Nice.
Despite The Eyes of Tammy Faye seeming like kind of, you know, Oscar bait.
Right.
Yeah, Malignant was just so much more fun. And you know, maybe because I didn't know much about it going in, but seeing it in the theater and just having that what the fuck reaction was really refreshing after you know, a time of not going to many movies and sort of being bummed out amid COVID. It was refreshing to have that kind of theater experience where you're just laughing your ass off and just waiting to see what crazy thing happens next.
Nice. Yeah. And I've been going back to the movie theater, you know, pretty, not nearly as frequently as I was before, but like anytime I go, I mean, it's just like when it's not like a press screening or anything, when I go see like when I saw Malignant, just, you know, at the theater, it was just like, this, like that, and when I saw Candyman also, it was just like I was excited because like these are horror movies and theatrical experiences are like part and parcel with extremely fun theater experiences with the right one. And I think that it's just a bummer that theaters are and granted I'm going to earlier screenings and stuff, but it's like there was like 3 people in the theater with me for Malignant and like 4 people in the theater with me for Candyman, and I'm just like, this isn't I want it to be back to normal. Yeah. Did you have any interesting experiences with your theater experience with it?
Well, I was a little self-conscious of our laughing because there were only a handful of people in the theater. But after a certain point, I was like, fuck it, this is hilarious.
Sure.
Like, if these other people aren't laughing, then
Nice.
they have sticks up their asses or something. 'Cause
Right.
This is so fucking funny.
Yeah.
So I just loudly cracked up. Yeah, I'm sorry if I bothered them, but whatever, whatever.
Nice. Great. Well, I think that will do it for our review of Malignant. When the IFJA meets, are you going to be pushing this for movie of the year or any awards?
Yeah, shoe in for Best Picture.
Nice.
I'm gonna go shoe in for the Original Vision Award.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not going to nominate this for anything. I mean, it is one of the most entertaining movies I've seen this year, but it's not quite what I would put up for IFJA award consideration.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited to revisit it. I'll say that. I'm very excited to revisit it and just kind of live in that world again. Like I said at the beginning, Malignant is in theaters and on HBO Max until October 10th. And Sam, we usually do, when we close out the episodes, we do a potpourri section. Do you have time to talk about like a movie or two that you've seen recently?
Sure.
Okay, great. So, we're going to do a potpourri section. This is kind of rare these days. But we are, So Potpourri is a section of the podcast where we wind down and talk about what we've seen, what we're looking forward to, anything that is on our minds. And Sam, since you are my guest here, do you want to get us kicked off with anything that's on your movie mind? The kind of tagline we have for it is whatever you want, as long as it smells good. What do you have for Potpourri?
Well, I'll do a little Midwest Film Journal plug.
Yes.
I currently have a review of The Eyes of Tammy Faye up on the website. I had mixed feelings on this one. I basically think it struggles to balance satire with empathy. For those who don't know, Tammy Faye Baker was a famous televangelist, along with her husband, Jim Baker. They had very successful TV shows, and they basically, bilked people out of money, and kind of confused Christianity with the capitalist American dream. I would say the movie works best when it focuses on that. It kind of struggles when it tries to empathize with Tammy Faye. It kind of glosses over the positive impact she had. There's just one scene where she interviews a gay HIV positive minister, and it kind of shows how she was accepting of all people from all walks of life. It's just a brief scene, though. I would say, in terms of a movie that's kind of balancing satire with some level of empathy for its subject, I would say a biopic like I, Tonya is a little more effective.
Oh, yeah.
Or like Oliver Stone's W, which was, about George W. Bush. Another of my latest reviews is of The Card Counter. That's probably my favorite movie of the year so far.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's very simple, very low key, but it's just really stayed with me. I can't stop thinking about it. Nice. Oscar Isaac plays a former soldier who was involved in the Abu Ghraib, the torture of Iraqi inmates at Abu Ghraib prison, and he goes to prison for that. And then when he gets out, he travels across the country from casino to casino, gambling, card counting, and during one of his casino trips, he runs into someone else who was affected by Abu Ghraib, and they formed this connection. And I don't want to give away too much from there, but it's written and directed by Paul Schrader. It feels like sort of the conclusion of his anti-hero trilogy.
Oh yeah,
with Taxi Driver, First Reformed, and now this. All three of those movies are about these men driven to extreme acts, and they all kind of deal with real world issues through this one loner character. Taxi Driver explored urban decay through a New York City cabbie. First Reformed explored climate change through this minister fighting a crisis of faith. And now the Card Counter explores America's post 9/11 crimes through this former soldier character. It's just timely. It's has a great moody atmosphere. Kind of has this just intoxicating air of dread throughout, which is really my kind of movie. So I'm a real fun guy. A real fun, lighthearted kind of guy.
Sure.
Favorite movie of the year is The Card Counter. Yeah, that's kind of what's on my mind lately.
Nice. Very nice. I haven't really watched much of anything, so I don't know why I talked myself into a corner here, but I've been watching a lot of The Simpsons, and yeah,
very nice.
Yeah, it's always fun. I did watch Creepshow again recently for Tower Junkies, and that movie, that is it's super fun, but like the bug aspect of it in the end is just too much. Like I don't do bugs. So that's something. But yeah. All right. Well, I think that should just about do it. I think. Thank you so much, Sam, for joining me here on Obsessive Viewer to talk about Malignant and put up with my shit. And
it was a pleasure.
Nice, awesome. And once again, why don't you tell people where they can find you online, and all of your work and everything.
Cool. Yeah. You can find my reviews at midwestfilmjournal.com. You can also catch me on Letterboxd at Sam Movie Man. I'm trying to be pretty consistent with reviews on both. That's pretty much my online presence. If you are intrigued by any of my thoughts on movies, feel free to friend me on Facebook. We can chat about movies. But yeah, that's where I am.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me here, and we'll definitely have to have you back at some point, hopefully soon, to talk about more movies and everything. I would love, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I would love to have you and Evan on as a precursor to Heartland. That's kind of close, but talking about Heartland Horror, that would be kind of fun. But I don't know. We'll talk.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So that'll do it for this episode of Obsessive Viewer. Thank you guys so much for listening. And once again, check out Patreon and all that other good stuff. And thanks again, Sam. And thank you for listening. And I forget how I end these. Thank you for listening and have a good one. And now, here's a short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. To hear the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. Charles Boone is leaving the room, and then as he shuts the door, that's when we see the ghost or the demon or whatever it is. And that's just super unsettling. That's very just, it gave me vibes of what little I saw, although I will be rectifying that hopefully soon, but what little I saw of the Haunting of Hill House. So high marks for that scare in this episode, even if it is maybe a little bit derivative, but it was still pretty effective for me. And then this show, I feel like is maybe going to test my mettle a little bit. Like, I think it is going to be a struggle for me personally, because I am not a fan, or I'm very squeamish. I'll say that. I'm very squeamish when it comes to body horror. And that scene...
The Obsessive Viewer podcast is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to ObsessiveViewer.com/OV archive. You can also like our Facebook page and join the OV Facebook group at Facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer, and follow us on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer and at ObsessiveTiny, and follow our recurring co-hosts at I am Mike White, that's me, at R.A. Feckus, and at Burger_Lurker. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at obsessiveviewer.com/donate, or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at teepublic.com, T-E-E, public.com. For information about our annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out shocktoberInIrvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to obsessiveviewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find Anthology, Matt's solo podcast covering The Twilight Zone and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows at anthologypod.com and on Twitter at OVAnthologyPod. You can also find Tower Junkies, a podcast where Matt and Tiny share their love of all things Stephen King and his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series, at towerjunkiespod.com and at towerjunkiespod on Twitter. And finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda at thesecularperspective.com. The theme music for The Obsessive Viewer comes courtesy of the band Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. Additional bumper music is provided courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Kitty!